So what I want to talk about today is the concept of transcendence. This is not an easy lesson or concept for any incarnated being to actualize into or to actually achieve, but that does not make it something worth discussing. In essence, it is the very final lesson that an individual will move through, will work through during an incarnation on Earth. So I want to start by first defining what transcendence is. What is the meaning of this word or this concept? So throughout the ages, many religions have elevated the teachers, the prophets, the gods, in essence, in their religion or in their ideologies through the idea that those with the highest connection or who have attained the highest level of spiritual actualization have merged with this point or merged into the consciousness of transcendence. So what do we mean by that? In essence, what we mean by that, or the lesson that we are seeking, is for the soul, for the being, for the essence to be able to transcend the culmination of its creative power. What is the creative power of the being? What is the operant power of any life force here on planet Earth? Well, that is the consciousness, the intelligence behind all of the material structure that is moving through this three-dimensional reality. So in terms of transcendence, it is the concept and the absolution of the knowledge and understanding of the lesson that you are not your body. Now, of course, you are in a body. So this is very difficult for the mind to grasp. This is very difficult to put into practice. And when we look at spiritual teachers like Jesus, who were able to transcend the pain, the suffering, the circumstances which the body had to endure, this is exactly what we are talking about in terms of transcendence. The consciousness which was Jesus was able to assimilate the lesson, the transcendent lesson, that his essence in a body was more than the body. At this point of knowledge, he no longer suffered, or he was able to understand that the body was temporal. All of the things that were done against the body were also not done with a totality of understanding of the entire system. In that knowledge, Jesus was able to be infinitely merciful. He was able to understand the lesson through the context of both the observer and the observee, understanding that those who were acting against him didn't understand what they were doing. They may not understood his purpose. They may not have had the knowledge of what he was trying to teach. They felt attacked by what he was trying to teach, instead of understanding that his teachings were about unconditional love and unity. And that is why they were in distorted perception. But Jesus's understanding, in his compassion and in his merciful transcendent state, was that he understood acutely that this was the distortion, that it was this distortion of their conscious projection that was causing them to act in the way that they did. So, how is this lesson of transcendence applicable to yourself, to your lifetime, to your circumstances? Well, undoubtedly, each and every one of us can highlight circumstances in our external reality where others are doing things that we find harmful, hurtful, attacking, mistreating, distorted in some way against us or against our loved ones. And that right there is where we have to learn to transcend. This is difficult. Many individuals that hear this will say, you don't know the amount of pain this individual or these individuals has caused me or has caused my family, or the pain and suffering that I've experienced. And absolutely, I understand that vantage point. But the very crux of the lesson, the very meaning of the lesson, and why it is so incredibly difficult to integrate in any given lifetime is because of its level of difficulty. Because it calls forth an understanding within the individual that is above everything that is happening in three-dimensional reality. You must look from this higher divine vantage point and understand that the singularity that is each individual's consciousness is in a state where it cannot perceive the whole. It cannot understand all of the pieces. So this is, again, the thread of compassion. Once we understand that the singularity, the other individual in the external reality cannot see all of the pieces, then we understand from our own conscious vantage point that because they cannot understand and conceptualize all of the pieces, they are perceiving and projecting through the lens of distortion. And that is the ultimate act. So again, the ultimate act of compassion is a deep understanding that the other is coming from perception and projection of distorted thinking. That does not mean what they are doing is right or righteous or in line with universal energy or divine thinking. It absolutely does not mean that. What it means is that we hold space for compassion and mercy within the self. Now, what does that achieve? That achieves a raising of our conscious calibration in terms of the vibratory field. When we can consciously calibrate at this extreme high level of unconditional love, we become transcendent of all of our earthly circumstances. It's that simple. Now, again, I don't want to say that the lesson and integrating the lesson is simple, but that is the simplicity of the lesson. And I don't, as a teacher of this, like to overcomplicate it, because nothing that we are here on earth to learn is overly complex. It is just oftentimes hard to implement. And it's hard to implement due to societal programming, wounds that we hold inside, our own traumas, our own projection and distortion. Because what happens when we're integrating these lessons? We have to undoubtedly turn the mirror back on the self, the individual consciousness, and we have to look for the darkness within. We have to look for the distortion. And what is the distortion? They are any thought, or it is any thought forms that are calibrating at a lower frequency of unexpanded, undistorted spiritual sight. So anything that is jealous, is attacking, is condemning, is hurtful, is angry or violent or victimized or in a state of sadness, any of those lower vibrational thought forms are blockages and distort. This is something that, you know, you can start to work on individually. Now, especially with anything that is physically done to you as a body from a body. So anything that is an act of violence, an act of abuse, trauma that you go through as a consciousness in a body is extremely hard to transcend. The amount of heart energy and spiritual expansion that it takes to be able to rise above those circumstances is an incredibly difficult part of this lesson to crystallize into one's own divine blueprint. But it is still worthwhile. And it is worthwhile noting that anything that we hold inside, even if it is traumatic, even if it is something that we have suffered through, a violence, an abuse, painful circumstance, a loss, if we are holding that within our energetic matrix, it is causing distortion. It is causing distortion by what we are projecting onto others, and it is causing distortion within our own conscious field. So once we understand that, once we really solidify and catalyze that aspect of our learning process here on Earth, we can start to clear the view, clear the windshield essentially in terms of our journey, and start to piece by piece illuminate all of those aspects of the self, aspects of the consciousness, and start to flow and move towards the journey of transcendence. Okay, thank you so much, and hopefully we'll see you in the next lesson.